evening, everyone. Welcome. I am Ms. Agnes Archibald Duncan, a member of Group 3 staff at St. Peter's Early Childhood Care and Education Center. The other members of staff, Ms. Carla Geloso, Ms. Lynette Moore, and our school's counselor, along with one of our parents, Ms. Katisha Fergus, are here for our parent-teacher conference. We will be looking at low self-confidence. How can we determine if a child in our classroom has low self-confidence? Let us find out. Observation is crucial in examining children's development over time. Through observations, teachers and parents are able to determine the level of skills and abilities of children, and may find problem behaviors and attitudes that need intervention. One such problem is low self-confidence. Self-confidence has been defined by Hale 2004 as having a positive and healthy belief in yourself and in your ability. Children who have low self-esteem tend to have negative thoughts and lack initiative, which can impact their growth and development mentally. As teachers, when this is observed, accurate and objective documentation is required and is pertinent to interpret and analyze the events. Sharing of the information is also important as it provides opportunity for meaningful collaboration among stakeholders. Let us look into Ms. Geloso's classroom to see how observations, documentations, and assessments were used and how the information was shared with our concerned parent.
Good day, Ms. Fergus. Thank you for coming in today to speak about Joshua's development.
I am happy to be here, and I must admit I was a bit worried when you said you had some concern you wanted to share with me.
Oh, no need to be startled. This is just our end of term parent-teacher conference. So let's start off with some positives. Joshua has very strong fine motor skills. Look at this wonderful picture that he collaged. You see? He knows his numbers. He can count from 1 to 10. He knows lots of shapes and colors. So I'm so proud of him. Cognitively and physically, he is very strong. Now, you may have noticed a new face within our learning environment. Miss Moore is a student teacher whom we have here. She's doing her practicum at our school. And as part of this, she has to do several observations. Now, last time I would have sent home a note to you stating that we wanted your permission to observe Joshua. And thankfully, you signed it and you returned it. Thank you so much for that. Well, through those observations, Miss Moore noticed that Joshua may be exhibiting some signs of having a social emotional delay because of his low self-confidence. And I would have noticed those things as well. I'm concerned because he avoids tasks or challenges without even trying. I noticed that he experiences change in moods whenever he has to do something new or whenever he has to do something that is somewhat challenging. He would cry and show a lot of frustration or just become very reserved. He shows no affection towards his peers, and he is often withdrawn and isolated from the class, and he does not participate in activities.
I understand what you're saying completely. Joshua is the last of my 3 children.
Okay.
And when my other children were at Joshua's age, they had an interest in behaving like their friends and wanted their friends' approval. They used to prefer same-gender friendship. My daughter used to look for children in the neighborhood at her age, and she would get jealous when the friends played with the child more than her. She would follow the rules most of the time and criticize kids who do not follow the rules. They would enjoy being on display. They like singing and dancing and getting all the attention. They wanted approval and to be taken seriously. They may throw tantrums to get attention most of the time. They started to see why it is helpful to share and get along with other kids.
Right, Miss Fergus, that is the typical behavior of a 4.5-year-old child. So those things that you would have experienced with your other children is typically what we look for in a child who is around Joshua's age. Now, it's expected that children in preschool during the term all the school year, they would display social and emotional development, which extends beyond just making friends. They would begin to make decisions about what is right and wrong. They would start to, gravitate towards their friends and have an interest in expressing themselves. So that's really the typical behavior for a child, and that's why I was concerned, because I was not noticing those things in Joshua. I'd now invite Miss Moore to tell us more about how she went along gathering this information, her conclusions, and the assessment tools that she would have used. Let's invite Miss
Hi,
Moore.
Ms. Berger. Thank you for joining us. And as indicated by Ms. Jelliso, I am Lornette Moore, and I was responsible for conducting observations on Joshua. Now, our concerns for Joshua had led us to observe him in different situations using various observation techniques. And when we say observations, we are looking and watching Joshua for specific behaviors and attitudes and to determine his level of development. Now, the reasons just explained to you means that we were looking at his behavior in the social emotional domain. That is, how he is coping with his friends and how he is managing his feelings. Now, the assessment tools used to arrive at the conclusion that Joshua may have some level of social emotional delay is the authentic informal assessment. An authentic means that we are looking at his behaviors in a natural setting, and these include direct observations, recording, documentation, and analysis of those events. Now, when we say formative, we are referring to assessment used as learning occurs. And two such authentic assessment tools are the anecdotal recording and the time sampling. Now, let's start with the anecdotal notes. These record specific behaviors, and these notes are ongoing. They provide a brief yet objective view on Joshua's behaviors and his attitudes. And we use these notes every other day for 10 minutes, either during free play or in a group structured activity. These notes are stated in a positive tone of what Joshua can do, and they provide a repeated measure of the behavioral changes in his life. Now, they also record the need, which is later used as a form of decision making. Now, it was determined that we will observe Joshua every other day in either free play activities or when we see him refusing to participate in activities or being defiant or even shy. I will carefully watch and listen to everything that Joshua did between that time frame, and I will jot some notes. After the incident, I will go back and then write the anecdotal record. Now, the second tool that was used is the time sampling. And the time sampling is used where there is a concern about a particular aspect of behavior as well as the frequency of that behavior. Behavior such as Joshua being withdrawn or isolating himself from others. Now, in using this method of observation, I am able to determine if that level needed intervention. And it is objective as I only write what I see and what I hear. Now, before starting the time sampling observation, a clear aim has to be decided. And this time sampling was used every other day as well, between 3 separate intervals. At free play time, which is about 9:30, during structured activity, which is about 10:30, outdoor play, which is at 1:30. And these were used to ascertain the frequency of the withdrawal episodes. Now, each observation lasted 20 minutes in total, with a 5-minute interval. Now, the final assessment tool we used was the checklist. And this is a list that checks off the specified behaviors. Now, we chose the checklist because of its objectivity, which means that what we see is what we checked off. Now, the checklist is very simple, it's valid, it's easy to use, it's easily interpreted by the teacher and yourself, of course, in order to gain an assessment of Joshua's level of self-confidence. Now, the checklist was used once per month, and this enabled Joshua to build those skills that we saw lacking during the month. It was used to assess his development and was part of the school readiness assessment. So at the end of the month, I will use the list and tick off the skills that Joshua exhibited, and the ones that he did not, I left that blank. Now, the use of a checklist enabled both myself and Ms. Jelliso to be mindful of what aptitudes Joshua had achieved.
Okay, thank you, Miss Moore, for your observation. They are really helpful in helping me to learn about Joshua's delay. Now, Ms. Jelly, so a question for you. How will this information be used?
It's a good question that you asked. Now, it's up to all of us, myself as a teacher, Miss Moore as the student teacher, the counselor, and you as the parent to work together to support Joshua. I have already begun to incorporate some strategies, so I'd like to share those with you. What I researched was that I, as a teacher, would have to identify my own personal biases and the things that I would do in the classroom with the children. I looked at the symbolic interaction theory, and that's where feelings of worth or unworthiness can come from others' feedback. So when I am interacting with the children in my classroom, I have to be sure that they are comfortable and that they are, what I'm saying is good for their well-being and how I interact with them. There's also the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's where teachers set their expectancy and students from a particular classroom would behave how the teacher expects them to behave. If I expect the child would be bright and come in expecting all children to answer the questions, I would give them opportunities to do so, and in so doing they'll be more comfortable and more expressive. I have also chosen to incorporate a buddy system. I would have someone else who's more vocal sitting with Joshua so that they can model the social behaviors that he should adopt. And I also would encourage a good personal interaction among all of the children in my classroom. So I would use teachable moments to tell them how they should treat their friends so that everyone will feel comfortable and want to express themselves, and they would have a good feeling of well-being. And I'd also give him opportunities to make his own choices and contribute to the welfare of other students in the classroom. And I can also perhaps read stories that have to do with children being more brave. So I'll be incorporating that into my lesson on a daily basis, and he will feel more comfortable. So those are just some strategies. And of course, it's always important generally for teachers to invite parents in. So I'm happy that you came in to talk about Joshua's development. Now, if you are another type of parent and you notice that you weren't so receptive or that the home environment had anything to do with why Joshua is this way, then I would have to go further and invite a counselor in or even a social worker to investigate the issue.
Okay. So what if these strategies do not work? What will happen?
Another good question. Our resident counselor is here and she's versed in this area. Why don't we invite her to tell us about the long-term effects of having a low self-esteem?
The reason for this parent-teacher conference is to highlight Joshua's social-emotional delay that is evident by the lack of self-confidence that he displays. As professionals, best practice dictates that there be standards, and these standards ensure the care that children receive in the first 6 to 8 years of life will determine the adults that they will become. These are the years when the foundation for growth and development, health and nutrition, physical, social, language, creative, and cognitive abilities are laid. The experiences that children have and the way in which they interact with their parents, family members, other adults, caregivers, and their peers influence the way they learn and behave. Consequently, this is a team effort, and we need you to partner with us at home by praising, encouraging, stimulating, and giving Joshua words of affirmation to support his positive social emotional development, as these stimulating parenting practices will promote Joshua's positive social, emotional, and self-confidence development. Your parental intervention and stimulation is extremely important to ensure a positive future outcome for Joshua and the prevention of any long-term challenges that not only Joshua will face, but also you as the parents. Some of these challenges are: 1. Low self-esteem may lead to Joshua's continuous avoidance of tasks and challenges, which will reinforce his underlying doubts and fears. 2. Academic problems, which is directly related to low self-esteem. 3. Joshua will not achieve his fullest attention as poor self-esteem plays a critical role in the development of mental disorders and social problems like depression, bulimia, anorexia, anxiety, and violence. 4. Internalizing and externalizing behaviors. 5. Additionally, persons with low self-esteem feel the need to cope with negative feelings by participating in high-risk behaviors like alcohol, drug use, and suicidal tendencies. I trust that after all the research, documentation, analysis, and assessments that were done to prove that intervention is needed to support and assist Joshua's development, that you will look at all the information that was presented, reflect, and partner with us to ensure that Joshua reaches his fullest potential, make you proud parents, and become a contributing member to our society. Thank you for listening, and I am available at your convenience if you may have any further questions or concerns.
Well, I will surely work along with you to avoid these challenges.
Very good. I anticipate your collaboration and I hope that through working together, Joshua will start improving. Thank you once again for coming.
Thank you.
Having listened to our parent-teacher conference, we have learned that the teachers in Ms. Geloso's classroom used a variety of observation tools such as anecdotal records, checklists, and time samplings to conduct observations and documentations on a student Joshua who they had reasons to be concerned about since he seemed to be having a social and emotional issue of low self-confidence by not taking part in school activities and being withdrawn from his friends. These observation tools were used on different days and times for specific time spans that allowed for sufficient documentation and assessment to be made in order to plan effective intervention strategies to assist the child in overcoming this problem. As we have heard, the child's parent was called in for the parent-teacher conference and the information gathered from the observations was shared and discussed in details. The school's counselor was also present and explained some long-term challenges such as mental disorders and academic problems that can occur if the matter was not addressed as soon as possible. All stakeholders involved in education should work in collaboration to ensure that observations are effectively conducted in order to support children's successful learning and development.